My name is Michael Carter, and I died for 11 minutes. I don't say that lightly. I don't say that for effect. I say it because it is the only way to begin telling you what I was shown. For 11 minutes, my heart stopped beating. For 11 minutes, everything I called life let go of me, and I let go of it. And in that space, where there is no clock, no body, no noise, I stood in a reality more real than anything I had ever known. I met Jesus, not as a belief, not as a figure in a book, not as something distant or symbolic. I met him, and when I came back, I tried to bury it. I tried to tell myself it was just the brain, just trauma, just something fading. But it didn't fade. It followed me into my waking hours, into my sleep, into the silence I used to escape into, because what he showed me, what he placed inside me, was not meant to stay hidden. And I've resisted this moment for days, for weeks, for longer than I want to admit, because there are parts of this that still shake me. There are things I was shown that I do not fully understand, but I was never asked to understand them. I was asked to speak them. Keep speaking. That is what I hear, even now. Not with my ears, but somewhere deeper than thought. Keep speaking, because what I saw was not only about death, it was about what is coming. It was about a place that most people only hear about through fear, or headlines, or distance. Iran, the year 2026. I didn't go looking for that. I didn't expect it. I didn't even want to see it, but it was shown to me clearly, deliberately, undeniably. And ever since I came back, there has been this weight, not fear, but responsibility. Because once something is revealed to you in that place, it doesn't belong to you anymore. It becomes a message, and the message demands a voice. The truth must be told. I've tried to silence it. I've tried to move on. Pretend I never crossed that line. Pretend I never stood in that presence. Pretend I never saw what I saw. But silence started to feel like disobedience, like I was carrying something sacred and refusing to release it. And I can't do that anymore, because before I came back, before breath returned to my lungs, before my eyes opened again, I made a promise, a vow, that if I was given another chance to speak, I would not waste it. Even if my voice shakes, even if I lose everything familiar, even if no one believes me, keep speaking. That is what remains. That is what burns. Because this is not just a story. This is not just something that happened to me. This is something that is happening now. Something unfolding, whether we are ready or not. And I am telling you this because somehow you were meant to hear it. Not by accident, not by chance, but because something in you is already listening. Something in you recognizes that this matters. And before I go any further, before I take you into what happened before and what came after, you need to understand this one thing. I did not come back the same, and neither will you. Once you hear the rest, the truth must be told. Keep speaking. I wish I could tell you that I was searching for something and that I was already reaching for God, that I was on the edge of some great spiritual awakening before all of this happened, but I wasn't. My life, before those 11 minutes, was quiet in the wrong way, not peaceful, not whole, just muted. I woke up every morning to the same alarm, the same dull vibration cutting through sleep that never felt complete. I would reach for my phone before I even opened my eyes, fully scrolling, checking, consuming, anything to avoid the silence waiting for me. Because silence had started to feel heavy. I would make coffee, stand there while it brewed, watch the steam rise like something trying to escape and disappear. That was my life. Moments rising, fading, never really held. I went to work, drove the same roads, sat in the same traffic, listened to the same noise, and yet, inside, there was a distance I couldn't explain, like I was present, but not fully there, like something in me had stepped back and was just watching. I laughed when I was supposed to laugh, spoke when I was supposed to speak, smiled when it was expected. But beneath all of that, there was a quiet emptiness, not loud enough to alarm me, not sharp enough to break me, just constant, like a low hum in the background of everything. And I learned to live with it. I told myself, this is what life is: routine, responsibility, repetition, wake up, work, eat, scroll, sleep, repeat. But every now and then, usually at night, something would break through. I would lie there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, and feel it again. That question, not spoken, but present. Is this all there is? And I would turn over, reach for my phone again, fill the silence with something, anything, so I didn't have to sit with it. Because sitting with it felt like standing at the edge of something I wasn't ready to face. I believed in God. At least, I said I did. But belief had become distant, abstract, something I carried in words, not in fire. I didn't pray the way I used to, didn't listen the way I once tried to. I told myself I was just busy, just tired, just living. But deep down, there was a knowing I kept pushing away. Something in me had gone quiet, not dead, but quiet, waiting. He called my name in the dark. I didn't recognize it then. I thought it was just my thoughts, just late night restlessness, just the mind wandering where it shouldn't go. But looking back now, I see it. Moments where everything would pause, just slightly, where the world felt thinner, where something unseen was closer than it should have been. I remember standing in my kitchen one morning, coffee in my hand, and feeling this sudden weight in the air. Nothing visible, nothing dramatic, just stillness. The kind that doesn't belong in a busy morning. It lasted only a few seconds, but it stayed with me. I brushed it off, went on with my day, answered emails, took calls, moved through conversations I barely remember now. But that feeling, it didn't leave completely. It followed me, quietly, like a shadow that didn't need light. And there were other moments, driving home at dusk, when the sky turns that deep blue, just before night fully takes over. I would feel it again. A pull, not physical, not emotional, something deeper, like my soul was being invited, and I kept ignoring it, because answering it would have meant stopping, and stopping would have meant feeling, and feeling would have meant facing something I didn't understand. So I stayed in motion. I stayed in noise. I stayed distracted. But the distance inside me kept growing, slowly, quietly, until even the things that used to bring me joy started to feel flat. Conversations felt shallow. Achievements felt temporary. Even rest. I didn't restore anything. I would sit with people and feel alone, stand in a room full of noise and feel silence pressing in. And I didn't tell anyone, because how do you explain something like that? How do you describe a kind of emptiness that doesn't look like pain, but feels like absence? So I carried it, day after day, moment after moment, until it became normal, until I forgot what it felt like to be fully present, fully alive, fully awake. And still, he called my name in the dark, not loudly, not forcefully, but consistently, through the quiet, through the unease, through the moments I tried to ignore. He was there, closer than I realized, closer than I wanted to admit, but I was not ready. I was still holding on to the life I understood, even if it was slowly draining something out of me. I didn't know that everything was about to change. I didn't know that the silence I feared would soon become the doorway to something I could never return from. I didn't know that the routine I clung to was already unraveling beneath me. Because when the moment came, it didn't announce itself. It didn't warn me. It didn't ask if I was ready. It simply arrived, and everything I thought was stable, everything I thought was certain, was about to be taken from me in a single breath. Keep speaking. The truth must be told. He called my name in the dark. It happened on a day that didn't feel important. No warning, no sign written across the sky, no voice telling me to prepare. Just another ordinary moment, slipping quietly into the next. I remember the room, the stillness, the faint hum of everything around me, machines, distant movement, life continuing, as if nothing was about to change. And then, something shifted, not outside, inside, a tightening, deep in my chest. At first it felt small, almost ignorable, like a muscle pulling the wrong way. I tried to move past it, tried to breathe through it, but then it grew, sharp, heavy, unforgiving, like something had reached into my chest and closed its hand around my heart. And, suddenly, everything became louder. Too loud. The smallest sounds began to stretch, distort, echo. Time didn't stop, but it slowed in a way I cannot fully explain. Each second, longer than it should have been. Each breath, are harder than the last. I remember trying to steady myself, trying to stay in control, but control was already leaving me. My body didn't feel like mine anymore. My hands, distant. My legs, unresponsive. There was a moment, just a brief one, where fear rushed in completely. Not quiet, not subtle, overwhelming. The kind of fear that strips everything down to a single thought. Something is very wrong. I tried to hold on, tried to anchor myself to anything familiar, but it was like trying to grip water. Everything slipped, everything faded, and then there was a breaking point, a single instant where something inside me let go, and the pain, the fear, the weight stopped. Not slowly, not gradually, all at once, gone, replaced by something I had never felt before. Stillness. Not empty, but complete. Not silent, but full. And in that stillness, I realized something that did not make sense. I was no longer inside my body. I didn't think it at first. I knew it. The knowing came before the thought. I was above, not high, not far, but removed, separated, looking down at something I recognized, and yet I could not fully connect to anymore. My body, still, unmoving, and the room, moving around it. Everything was happening, but I was no longer part of it. I could see it clearly, the urgency, the motion, the tension, but none of it touched me. It was like watching a moment unfold behind glass, close enough to see, but no longer able to feel. And that is when the confusion came. Not panic, not yet, just disorientation. Because part of me was trying to understand what I was seeing, while another part of me already knew. Something irreversible had happened. I should have been afraid. I should have been fighting to get back. But something unexpected began to rise in me instead. Calm, not forced, not chosen, given. It moved through me like a quiet tide, washing away the last traces of fear. The urgency below me felt distant. The body I had lived in felt separate, important, but no longer mine. And that realization should have shattered me. But it didn't, because as the distance grew, so did the peace. A peace that did not come from understanding, a peace that did not ask questions, a peace that simply was. And I began to feel it clearly. I was no longer bound to wait, no longer confined to breath, no longer limited by the body I had always depended on. I was aware, fully, more aware than I had ever been. Every detail sharper, every sensation deeper, every moment expanded. And yet, There was no strain, no effort, just a presence. I could see everything, but more than that, I could perceive it, the space, the energy, the movement beneath the movement. And slowly, very slowly, the attachment began to loosen, not by force, not by decision, but naturally, like something being gently released. The life I had known, the body I had lived in, began to feel like something I had already stepped away from. And in that moment, standing between what I had been and what I was becoming, I understood something without words. There was no going back the same way. He called my name in the dark. Notice, a sound, but as a presence, a recognition, and as that awareness deepened, I felt it, a pull, subtle at first, almost unnoticeable, but steady, drawing me away, not downward, not sideways, upward, not in distance, but in dimension, like being invited into something deeper than space itself. And for a brief moment, I hesitated, not out of fear, but out of the last thread of attachment, the last quiet question, is this real? But the moment I felt it, I already knew the answer. Yes, more real than anything I had ever called real before. And so, without resistance, without struggle, I let go, completely. And the moment I did, everything changed. The room, the body, the world I had known fell away, not violently, not abruptly, but like something dissolving in light, and I was no longer watching from above. I was moving, carried, drawn, becoming part of something I did not control, but somehow trusted. The fear was gone, the confusion fading, and in its place, something deeper was unfolding, something I cannot fully explain, but I will try, because I gave my word that I would. Keep speaking. The truth must be told. He called my name in the dark, and I followed, and I followed, not with feet, not with effort, but with surrender. The movement was not like anything I had known before. It wasn't speed, and it wasn't distance. It was transition, like passing through a threshold that had always been there, waiting, unseen, until I was ready to cross it. At first, there was darkness, not empty, not cold, not frightening, just vast. A deep, quiet expanse that felt more like a pause than an absence. And within that pause, I felt it. The beginning of something. A subtle glow, far ahead, or perhaps deep within. I could not tell, because direction no longer worked the way it used to. There was no ahead, no behind, only movement toward, and the glow began to grow. Soft at first, gentle, like the first light before dawn, when the world hasn't yet realized the sun is coming. But this light was alive. It didn't just shine, it moved, it breathed, it responded. And as I was drawn closer, I began to hear something, not with ears, but with awareness, a sound woven into the light itself. Not music as we know it, but something deeper, harmonies that didn't follow rhythm, tones that carried emotion, meaning, memory. Every note felt like it was touching something inside me, awakening something I had forgotten. And the closer I came, the more I realized. This wasn't just light. This was presence, layered, living, infinite. It surrounded me, but it also moved through me. There was no separation between what I was experiencing and what I was becoming. And the darkness was no longer darkness. It had simply been the beginning of the unveiling, because now everything was illuminated, not harshly, not overwhelmingly, but perfectly. The kind of light that doesn't blind you, it reveals you. And as I moved deeper into it, I felt something rise in me that I had not felt in a long time. Not in fragments, not in moments, but fully. Peace. Not the kind that comes when problems disappear. Not the kind that depends on circumstances. This was different. This peace had weight. It had substance. It held me, steadied me, filled every part of me that had once felt empty. And with it came love. Not emotional, not fleeting, but absolute. A love that did not fluctuate, did not question, did not withdraw. It simply existed, constant, complete. And as it moved through me, I began to understand something without being told. This is what I was made for. This is what I had always been reaching for, without knowing it. Every restless night, every quiet ache, every moment of feeling disconnected had been a memory, a faint echo of this. And now I was inside it, fully. And then I became aware that I was not alone. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but gradually, like noticing stars appearing one by one in a night sky. There were others, presences, some close, some distant, all part of the same living reality. I could not see them the way I see people here. There were no defined edges, no fixed forms, but I knew them, not by face, not by name, but by essence. Each one carried something distinct, yet perfectly in harmony with everything around it. And somehow, I felt recognized, not introduced, not questioned, recognized, as if I had always belonged there, even though I had forgotten. And in that recognition, there was no judgment, no comparison, no separation, only connection, a shared awareness that went beyond words, beyond identity, beyond anything I had experienced before. And it was overwhelming, not in intensity, but in purity, because there was nothing hidden there, nothing pretending, nothing divided. Everything was exactly what it was meant to be, and for the first time, I was too. He called my name in the dark, and now I understood why. Because this place, this presence, this reality, it was not foreign. It was familiar, not in the way you remember a place you've been, but in the way you remember something you once were. There was a deep knowing rising in me, a quiet realization that settled into every part of my being. This is home, not the home I had built with walls and routines and responsibilities, but the home beneath all of that, the place my soul had always been connected to, even when my mind had forgotten. And as that realization unfolded, something inside me broke open, not in pain, but in recognition. Every layer of distance I had carried in life, every barrier, every distraction, I fell away, and what remained was clarity, pure, undeniable. I belonged here, not as a visitor, not as an outsider, but as something that had always been part of it. And yet, I knew this was not the end of the journey, because the light was still drawing me deeper, closer, towards something or someone that I had not yet fully seen. The presence around me began to shift, not losing its peace, not losing its harmony, but focusing, like everything was aligning, preparing, making way. And I felt it again, that pull, stronger now, more intentional, not just movement, but invitation. And within that invitation, there was something unmistakable. Not just love, not just peace, authority, gentle, but absolute. The kind of presence that doesn't demand attention, but holds it completely. And I knew, without needing to be told, I was about to encounter something greater than everything I had experienced so far, not separate from the light, but the source of it. And as I was drawn closer, everything within me became still, not forced, not commanded, but naturally, like every part of me recognized what was coming and surrendered to it. He called my name in the dark, and now I was about to see who had been calling. Keep speaking. The truth must be told. Return to the fire. And now I was about to see who had been calling. The light did not part. It deepened. What I had been moving through, what I had been surrounded by, began to gather. as if every strand of it was turning toward a single center, not collapsing, but converging. And in that convergence, something began to emerge, not suddenly, not with force, but with a quiet inevitability, like the horizon revealing itself as the fog lifts. At first, I could not separate him from the light, because he was not standing in it. He was within it, and it was within him. The presence I had felt, the authority that had drawn me, the love that had held me, was now before me. Jesus, not defined by edges, not limited by form, and yet unmistakably him. There was no confusion, no question, no need for explanation. I knew him before I could even think to ask how. The knowing came first, immediate, complete, like something written into the deepest part of me, suddenly illuminated. And as I became aware of him, everything in me responded, not by decision, not by effort, but by truth. I felt myself yield, not falling, not collapsing, but surrendering in a way that felt more natural than breathing. Because in his presence, nothing false could remain, nothing hidden could survive. Everything I had ever been, every thought, every memory, every moment was suddenly open, not exposed by force, but revealed by light. And I saw it, all of it, not in sequence, not as a timeline, but as a whole, my life, unfolding in a single, eternal instant. Every word I had spoken, every silence I had chosen, every moment I had ignored what I knew was right, every time I had felt the pull and turned away, it was all there, not replayed like a film, but experienced, felt, understood, not only from my own perspective, but from the impact it carried. I felt what others had felt, the weight of my actions, the absence of my attention, the moments where I could have chosen love and chose something else, and it would have been unbearable if it were not for what surrounded it, his presence, because there was no condemnation, none, no anger, no rejection, no distance, only clarity, pure, undeniable truth, held inside a love so complete it did not crush me. It revealed me. And for the first time, I saw myself without defense, without excuse, without the stories I had used to soften what I had become. Just truth. And in that truth, there was grief. Not imposed, not forced, but rising from within me. A deep awareness of what I had missed, what I had ignored, what I had allowed to remain untouched, not because I was rejected, but because I finally understood. He called my name in the dark, and now I knew how many times I had heard it and walked past it. And still, he did not turn away. He did not step back. He did not withhold anything from me. If anything, his presence drew closer. And as it did, the grief did not destroy me. It softened. It transformed, because woven through every moment I was seeing, every truth I was feeling, there was something else. Mercy. Not spoken, not explained, but undeniable. A mercy that had followed me through every day I had lived, even when I did not recognize it. A mercy that had kept calling, kept waiting, kept reaching, even when I had been distant. And I understood something in that moment that I had never truly understood before. I had never been alone. Not once. Not in the silence. Not in the distraction. Not in the distance. He had been there. Always. Closer than my own thoughts. And yet, never forcing himself into my awareness. Waiting. Calling. Patient. He called my name in the dark. And now, I was standing in the light that had been calling all along. There were no words spoken, not in the way we speak, but there was communication, clear, direct, complete. It moved through me rather than toward me, truth, entering without resistance. And in that exchange, I understood why I was there, not by question, by knowing. I had not arrived by accident. This was not random. This was not simply the end of a life. This was an encounter, a moment, appointed, precise, and within that knowing came purpose. Not vague, not distant, specific, weighty, sacred. I was being shown not only what I had been, but what I was now being asked to carry, not for myself, but for others. And the awareness of that settled into me with a kind of gravity I cannot fully describe, because it meant something. It meant responsibility. It meant return. And for the first time since I had entered that place, there was attention, not fear, but awareness, because to receive what was being given meant I would not be allowed to keep it to myself. The truth must be told. That understanding moved through me like a quiet command, not harsh, not forced, but undeniable. And as I remained there, in his presence, everything within me became still again, not because there was nothing happening, but because everything was aligned. Every question, silent. Every defense, gone. Every distraction, dissolved. There was only him, and the truth that flowed from him. And in that truth, I was ready. Not because I had earned it, not because I was prepared, but because I was being made ready. And as that readiness settled into me, I felt it, the beginning of something else. Not the end of the encounter, but the next unfolding, a revealing, a vision, something that was not only about me, but about the world I had left behind, something that carried weight beyond my own life, something I would be sent back to speak. And even before I saw it fully, I felt the cost of it, because truth like that does not leave a person unchanged. He called my name in the dark, and now he was showing me why. Keep speaking. The truth must be told. Return to the fire, and then it began. Not as a sudden flash, not as something forced into my sight, but as a gentle unfolding, like a veil being lifted layer by layer. I did not move, yet everything opened. The light around him did not fade. It transformed. It became vision, living, breathing, undeniable. And I was no longer only in his presence. I was being shown, not images placed before me, but reality revealed through me. And the first thing I felt, before I understood anything, was weight. Not fear, not confusion. Weight, the kind that tells you what you are about to receive, matters beyond your own life. He called my name in the dark, and now he was answering it. The vision settled, and a place began to form, not through geography, not through maps, but through recognition. A land, ancient, layered, carrying history like breath carries life. I knew it, without needing to be told. Iran, not as I had seen it before, not through headlines, not through distance, but as it truly is, alive, complex, filled with people, each carrying stories deeper than the surface ever shows. And what I expected to see, I did not see. There was no chaos in the way I had imagined it, no immediate destruction, no collapse. Instead, there was movement, quiet at first, almost invisible, like something growing beneath the soil before it breaks through. I saw people, ordinary, in appearance, walking streets, sitting in rooms, living lives that looked unchanged. But inside, something was shifting, a hunger, not for power, not for control, but for truth. It moved through them like a whisper they could no longer ignore, a restlessness deeper than circumstance, a longing that had no name, but demanded an answer, and they began to seek, not loudly, not publicly, but intentionally. I saw small gatherings, hidden, not in fear, but in protection, rooms where light was dim, but presence was strong, people sitting close, not speaking much, but knowing something was happening, a shared awareness that something sacred was near, not built on structure, not built on tradition, but built on longing. And in that longing, something began to ignite. He called my name in the dark, and I saw he was calling theirs too, not from outside, but within. A quiet awakening. One person, then another, like sparks scattered across a field, slowly catching. I saw young faces, eyes filled with questions, but also with fire. Not rebellion, not anger, conviction, a knowing they could not explain, but could not deny. They began to speak, carefully, humbly, but with something behind their words that could not be silenced. Truth, not borrowed, not repeated, discovered, and it spread, not through systems, not through platforms, through people, through connection, through the quiet courage of those who chose to respond instead of ignore. They were chosen. The phrase did not come as sound, but as certainty, not chosen above others, not chosen for status, chosen for responsibility, chosen to carry something that had been hidden, buried, overlooked, chosen to remember what had always been true. And the more they responded, the stronger it became. I saw families sitting together in silence, feeling something they could not explain. I saw individuals walking alone, suddenly aware, suddenly awake, as if something had touched them from beyond what they could see. I saw tears, not of despair, but of recognition, moments where truth met the heart, and the heart could no longer pretend it did not know. And beneath it all, there was unity, not forced, not organized, natural, a coming together, not around identity, but around truth. And I realized something that broke through everything I thought I understood. This was not about religion. This was about awakening, real, deep, unstoppable. The world must be shaken before it can be restored. The weight of that truth moved through the vision like a current, and I began to see what that meant. There were moments of tension, moments where the surface of things shifted, where systems strained, where certainty cracked, where what had been relied upon no longer held the same authority. But even in that, the awakening did not stop. It grew, because it was not dependent on stability. It was rooted in something deeper, something eternal. I saw fear try to rise, but it could not fully take hold, because wherever fear appeared, truth followed, and wherever truth took root, it created something new. Not destruction, transformation. He called my name in the dark, and now I understood. He had been calling a people, calling hearts, calling souls, across places we thought we understood, but never truly saw. And the vision expanded. Iran was not isolated. It was a beginning, a signal, a place where something hidden was becoming visible. And from there, it moved outward, quietly, steadily, across borders, across cultures, across lives. The same hunger, the same awakening, the same return. You were brought here to remember. The phrase settled deep within me, not just for them, for all, because what I was seeing was not confined to one place. It was spreading, a remembering of truth, of purpose, of connection to something greater than the world we had built around ourselves. And I saw something else, something that stayed with me even after I returned. This awakening, it did not come with ease. It required something, surrender, letting go of what was comfortable, what was familiar, what was safe, choosing truth, even when it cost something. And those who responded, those who said yes, even quietly, they began to change, not outwardly at first, but within, and that inner change began to shape everything around them, like light, slowly pushing back darkness. not by force, but by presence. They were chosen, not to escape, not to stand above, but to carry light into places that had long forgotten it. And as I watched, as the vision continued to unfold, I felt it, the weight, becoming clearer. This was not something I was meant to observe and forget. This was something I was meant to carry back, to speak, to release, even if it was misunderstood, even if it was questioned, even if it was resisted. The truth must be told, because what is hidden is being revealed. What is silent is beginning to speak. What is asleep is awakening. He called my name in the dark, and now he was calling the world. Return to the fire. 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 The words did not fade. They did not echo and disappear like something imagined. They remained alive, moving through everything I was being shown. And as they continued, the vision did not close. It expanded. What I had seen, what had begun in one place, did not remain there. It spread, not like a force pushing outward, but like light breaking through in multiple places at once. Iran was no longer the center. It was the beginning. And from that beginning, I saw the same awakening, rising across the earth, not in uniform ways, not through the same expressions, but through the same source. A call, the same call I had felt, the same call I had ignored, the same call that had followed me into the silence and waited. He called my name in the dark, and now I saw that he had been calling many. Across cities I recognized, and places I had never seen, across languages, across cultures, across lives that looked nothing alike, the same stirring. People pausing in the middle of their routines, moments where something interrupted the noise, where distraction could no longer fully hold them. I saw someone sitting alone, staring at a screen, and then suddenly putting it down, not out of discipline, out of awareness, as if something inside them had whispered, "This is not enough." I saw someone walking through a crowded street, surrounded by movement, surrounded by sound, and yet becoming still, not physically, internally, as if everything around them had faded and something deeper had stepped forward. I saw people waking up in the middle of the night, not from fear, but from presence, a quiet knowing that they were not alone, that something was near, that something was asking to be answered, and they began to respond, not perfectly, not completely, but sincerely, and that sincerity began to change them. He called my name in the dark, and now I saw. The darkness was not empty. It was filled with invitations everywhere. People who had lived years, untouched by anything spiritual, suddenly aware of something they could not explain. A pull toward truth, not borrowed truth, not inherited belief, but something real, something personal, something that demanded more than surface level answers. And they began to seek, some quietly, some desperately, some with hesitation, some with urgency. But they all moved in the same direction, towards something they had not fully seen, but somehow trusted. And as they moved, things began to fall away, not all at once, not without resistance, but steadily. Distractions that once held power began to lose their grip. Habits that once felt normal began to feel empty. Voices that once defined them became quieter. And in that space, something else emerged. Clarity, not overwhelming, not blinding, but steady, guiding, present. And I saw something that filled me with both awe and sorrow, because I realized this awakening had always been possible. It had always been near, but so many had been taught, or trained, or distracted away from it. And now, that distraction was breaking, not through force, through exposure, the emptiness of it, becoming undeniable, the weight of it, becoming too much to carry. And people began to choose differently. Small choices at first, moments of stillness instead of noise, moments of truth instead of avoidance, moments of surrender instead of control. And those moments, it began to build, one into another, one life into another, until it became something more than individual. It became collective, a movement without a name, without a structure, without a central place, and yet it's completely unified because the source was the same. Return to the fire. The phrase moved through the vision again, not as instruction alone, but as invitation, a call back to what had been lost, not externally, internally. I saw people rediscovering something ancient, something that had never truly disappeared, only been covered, a connection to God, not as concept, not as ritual, but as presence, living, immediate, accessible. And as they returned, they changed, not in ways that made them separate from the world, but in ways that allowed them to move through it differently, with clarity, with purpose, with a kind of quiet strength that did not need to prove itself. I saw forgiveness where there had been bitterness. I saw humility where there had been pride. I saw courage where there had been fear, not because circumstances had changed, but because something within them had, and that change began to ripple outward. Families shifting, communities softening, walls unseen but deeply rooted beginning to break, not violently, but naturally, because truth, when it is truly seen, does not need to force anything. It reveals, and what is false cannot hold its place. He called my name in the dark, and now I understood. This was not only about those who were already seeking. This was about those who had forgotten how, those who had given up, those who believed nothing real remained. And even they were being reached, quietly, patiently, relentlessly. And I felt something rise in me as I watched, not just awe, responsibility, because I saw clearly. This awakening was not automatic. It required response. It required willingness. It required people to say yes, even when they didn't fully understand what they were saying yes to. And I saw that every person had a place in it, not a role assigned by others, but a response shaped by truth, a choice to remain asleep or to awaken, to stay in distraction or to return. Return to the fire. Return to what is real. Return to what is eternal. And as the vision continued to expand, I saw something that settled deep into me. This had already begun. This was not something waiting for the future. It was happening, now, in quiet ways, in unseen places, in hearts that no one else could see. And yet, it was growing, and nothing could stop it. Not because of human effort, but because it did not originate from here. It was being released, allowed, carried, and all who responded became part of it. He called my name in the dark, and now he was calling yours, not loudly, not forcefully, but clearly enough that if you are listening, you will recognize it. And the question is not whether the call is real. The question is, will you answer it? Keep speaking. The truth must be told. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. The words were still moving through me when everything began to pull away. Not slowly this time, not gently. The light, the vision, the presence began to recede, not in distance, but in access, like something closing, not to reject me, but to send me. And I felt it immediately. The shift, the weight, the separation, the peace that had held me so completely began to thin, not disappear, but become distant, like a memory I was still inside of, but no longer anchored in. And then movement, not upward, not deeper, back, fast, uncontrollable, like being drawn through something I could not resist, could not slow, could not understand. And for the first time since I had left, something unfamiliar returned. Resistance, not chosen, not wanted, but present. A part of me did not want to go back, not because I hated life, but because I had finally seen what life truly was, and returning meant carrying that knowing into a place that did not reflect it. He called my name in the dark, and I felt myself being pulled back into it. The light narrowed, the presence no longer surrounding me, the awareness compressing, and then impact, not physical at first, but immediate, like stepping into something too small, too tight, too limited, and then it hit. The body, weight, pain, sound, all at once, like being dropped into something dense. After existing in something weightless, I gasped, or maybe my body did. I felt it before I understood it, air forcing its way into lungs that had been still, a sharp, burning sensation spreading through my chest, every nerve awake, every sensation overwhelming. The stillness I had known, shattered, replaced by noise, movement, confusion, and I was inside again, fully, no longer observing, no longer separate, trapped in the very thing I had just been released from. And it felt wrong. Not because the body is wrong, but because I now knew it was not all there is. The contrast was unbearable. The peace I had known, now replaced by pressure. The clarity, now clouded. The presence, now hidden. And I lay there, trying to understand, trying to hold on to what I had just experienced. But it was already slipping. Not the memory, the feeling, the fullness of it. Like trying to hold water in your hands. And I remember thinking, don't let it go. Don't forget. Don't lose this. Because I knew, once I fully returned, everything would try to convince me. It wasn't real. He called my name in the dark, and now I was back in it. The room came into focus slowly, blurred shapes becoming clearer, light that felt harsh, artificial, distant from what I had just seen, movement around me, urgency, but none of it felt as real as what I had just left. And that was the hardest part. Not the pain, not the confusion, the knowing. The knowing that what I had just experienced was more real than this. And now I was expected to return, as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. I could feel it immediately, the disconnection, not from reality, but from the version of reality I had once accepted. The conversations around me felt distant. The urgency felt misplaced. The world felt smaller, not in size, but in depth, like I had stepped out of something vast and been placed inside something narrow, and I didn't know how to exist in it anymore. Days passed, or maybe it was hours. Time didn't feel the same. Nothing did. I tried to speak about it. At first, carefully. Not everything, just fragments, pieces, trying to find words for something that had no language. But the more I spoke, the more I felt it. The distance, not just from them, but between what I had seen and what they could receive. Some listened, but didn't understand. Some nodded, but moved on. Some dismissed it quietly as something explainable, something temporary, something the mind creates under pressure. And I could feel it. That subtle closing, that quiet resistance, not hostile, not aggressive, but firm, as if the world itself was not built to hold what I had brought back. And for a moment, I questioned myself, not the experience, but my place in it. Was I supposed to speak this? Was I supposed to carry this alone? Was this something meant to be shared, or something meant to remain hidden? Because every time I tried, it felt like pushing against something unseen, a pressure, a discouragement, not loud, not obvious, but persistent, like a voice without words saying, stay quiet, let it go, move on. But I couldn't, because even as I tried to return to normal, normal no longer existed for me. The routines felt hollow, the distractions, transparent. The things that once filled my time now felt like noise, covering something deeper. And the memory did not fade. If anything, it became clearer, stronger, more present, not as something I revisited, but as something that stayed with me, constant, alive, and with it, the weight returned, not as burden alone, but as purpose. Keep speaking. The words came back, not from outside, not imagined, recognized, the same truth I had received, now pressing into me again. Keep speaking, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's misunderstood, even when it feels like no one is ready to hear it. Keep speaking, because silence was no longer an option. Not after what I had seen, not after what I had been given. And yet, speaking came with a cost. Not always visible, not always immediate, but real. Isolation. In moments I used to feel connected. Distance. In places I used to belong. A quiet sense of standing between two realities and fully belonging to neither. And there were moments where I wanted to stop, where I wanted to fold the experience away, treat it as something personal, something private, something I could carry without releasing. But every time I considered it, the same truth returned, clear, unavoidable. The truth must be told, not because I wanted to tell it, but because I said I would, because I made a vow, in a place where truth cannot be ignored. And that vow followed me back. He called my name in the dark, and even here, I could still hear it. Not as clearly, not as fully, but enough to remind me. I was not sent back to be silent. I was sent back to speak. Return to the fire, even here, especially here. Return to the fire, even when it costs you something, even when it separates you from what once felt normal, even when you are the only one in the room who sees it. Return to the fire, because what I was shown was not meant to stay hidden. And what I carry is not mine to keep. Return to the fire. I have carried these words back with me, through breath, through pain, through the weight of returning to a world that does not easily hold what I was shown. And now, I am speaking to you, not as someone above you, not as someone who has it all figured out, not as someone who understands everything I was shown, but as someone who made a promise in a place where promises are not taken lightly. I am speaking because I said I would, because silence is no longer something I can choose. And if you are here, listening to this, still present in this moment, you need to understand something. This is not random. You did not arrive here by accident. You were not just scrolling. You were not just passing time. Something in you paused. Something in you stayed. And that matters, because what I was shown was not just about me. It was about this moment, this kind of moment, where a person hears something deeper than information, something that doesn't just pass through the mind, but settles into the soul. He called my name in the dark, and I believe he is calling yours, not loudly, not forcefully, but clearly enough that if you are willing to be honest, you can feel it. There is a war, not the kind you see on screens, not the kind measured by borders or power, something quieter, something deeper, a war for attention, a war for truth, a war for your soul. And most people don't even realize they are in it, because it does not come with alarms. It comes with distraction. It comes with noise. It comes with endless things that keep you moving, without ever asking you to stop and see. And slowly, without noticing, people drift further from truth, further from presence, further from the very thing they were created for. I know, because I was one of them, living, functioning, existing, but not awake, not fully, not deeply. and it almost cost me everything. Because there comes a point where silence is no longer neutral, where distraction is no longer harmless, where choosing not to see becomes its own kind of decision. The truth must be told, not just by me, but through every life that is willing to respond to it. And now, you are standing in that space. Whether you realize it or not, you have heard something, you have felt something, and you have a choice. Not a dramatic one, not something that requires you to leave everything behind in a single moment, but something real, something internal. Will you ignore this, like so many other moments, or will you pause? Will you listen? Will you allow yourself to feel what is stirring beneath the surface? Because that stirring is not meaningless. It is not random. It is the beginning of awareness. And awareness is where everything changes. Return to the fire, not the fire of fear, not the fire of pressure, but the fire of truth, the fire that burns away what is false, the fire that reveals what is real, the fire that calls you back to what you were always meant to be connected to. And I know that even as I say this, there is a part of you that hesitates, a part that wants to move on, a part that says, maybe later, I'll think about it, I'll come back to this. But I need you to understand, later is not promised. Clarity is not guaranteed to return once it is ignored, and the longer you stay in distraction, the quieter the call becomes, until one day you can't hear it at all. He called my name in the dark, and I answered, just in time. And now, I am asking you to consider, what will you do with what you've just heard? Because this is not about watching a story. This is about recognizing yourself inside it. This is about understanding that awakening is not something that happens to others. It happens to individuals, one moment at a time, one decision at a time. And this could be one of those moments for you. So don't rush past it. Don't dismiss it. Don't bury it under the next distraction. Sit with it. Let it settle. Let it speak. And if you feel something, even quietly, respond to it. That is where it begins. And if you are willing to continue this journey, to hear more, to go deeper, to stay awake in a world that is constantly trying to pull you back into sleep, then stay connected here with Minutes Beyond Life, not as a channel, but as a place where these truths are spoken, where these moments are honored, where awakening is not treated as something rare, but something necessary, because there are more things that need to be said, more truths that need to be brought into the light, and you may be part of that. Whether you realize it yet or not, keep speaking. That is what I carry. That is what I am giving. And now, the question remains with you. Return to the fire or remain where you are. But know this, once you have heard the call, you cannot pretend it was never there. This is not just one story. I need you to understand that before anything else, because it would be easier for both of us if it were. If this were just something that happened to me, something rare, something distant, something you could listen to, feel for a moment, and then set aside. But it isn't. What I carried back was not meant to stay contained in my life. It was never mine alone. It is a window, a glimpse, a tearing of the veil, just enough to show what has always been there, waiting, unseen. And once you have seen it, you don't return unchanged. I haven't. I wake up, and I still feel it. Not the same way, not as fully, but enough to know this world is not all there is. The noise, the pressure, the constant movement, it no longer convinces me the way it used to, because I have stood in something that does not fade, something that does not depend on time, something that does not end. He called my name in the dark, and now, even here, I cannot unhear it. There are moments, quiet ones, when everything slows, and I feel it again. That presence, not as overwhelming as before, but close enough to remind me This life is thin, not meaningless, not unimportant, but temporary, a passage, a threshold, and the veil is thinner than we think, much thinner. We move through our days, believing that what we see is all that exists, that what we can touch is all that is real. But it isn't. There is more, so much more, closer than breath, closer than thought. And one day, every one of us will step through that veil, not as an idea, not as a possibility, but as reality. And in that moment, nothing we avoided will remain hidden. Nothing we ignored will stay quiet. Nothing we postponed will matter the same way. Only truth. Only what was real. Only what we chose when we had the chance to choose. The time is now, not later, not someday, now, because the call you feel, the stirring you sense, the awareness that is beginning to rise, it does not wait forever. It invites, it draws, it gives you space, but it will not force you, and that is where the weight of this moment lives. Choice. You are not being pushed. You are not being controlled. You are being invited, and that invitation is sacred. He called my name in the dark, and I answered. Not perfectly, not immediately, but before it was too late. And now I am standing here speaking to you because I was given that chance, and I cannot pretend that everyone will take it. That is the part that stays with me, the part that carries sorrow, because I have seen what waits beyond this life. I have felt what is real, and I know how easily it is ignored, how quickly it is dismissed, how quietly people turn away, not because they are evil, not because they are lost beyond hope, but because they are distracted, because they are tired, because they have been taught to look everywhere, except where truth actually is. And so I say this, not with judgment, but with urgency. Wake up, not in fear, but in awareness, not in panic, but in truth. Return to the fire. Return to what is real. Return to what has been calling you, even in your quietest moments. Because this life, it moves quickly, faster than we realize. And the things we think we have time for have a way of slipping away. Moments pass, opportunities fade, and the call, if ignored long enough, becomes harder to hear. The time is now, not because you are being rushed, but because you are being invited. While the door is still open, choose. Not perfectly, not with full understanding, but honestly. Choose to turn toward truth. Choose to respond to what you feel stirring. Choose to step out of distraction, even for a moment, and listen, because that is where it begins. And as you do, you will find what I found, not in the same way, not through the same path, but in truth. God is not distant. Christ is not unreachable. The connection is not reserved for a few. It is present, waiting, calling. Return to the Gospels, not as obligation, but as rediscovery. Return to the words, the life, the truth that has been preserved, not to control you, but to guide you. Return to Christ, not as concept, but as living reality. Because what I saw, what I experienced, what I cannot forget, points to Him, always, not to fear, not to confusion, to Him. He called my name in the dark, and when I finally saw Him, everything made sense. Not every detail, not every question, but the center, the truth beneath everything. And that truth has not left me. It will not leave me. And now I leave it with you, not forced, not demanded, offered. This is not just my story. It is a reflection, a glimpse, a reminder that what you do with your life matters, that what you choose in quiet moments matters, that what you respond to or ignore matters more than you realize, more than you've been told. So I will say it one last time, clearly. simply, without anything added to it. The time is now. Choose. Return to the fire. He called my name in the dark. And if you are still listening, maybe he is calling yours too.